From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Esmail Qaani. It's Wednesday, March 26th. Here are today's headlines. Witnesses spoke to The National about Monday's attack on Hamdan Ballal, the Palestinian co-director with Bassel Adra of Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land. They described more than a dozen masked Israeli settlers descending on the filmmaker's home village of Syria and the occupied West Bank. They say some of them were armed. Ballal was arrested along with two other Palestinians by Israeli forces. According to another of the film's co-directors, Yuval Abraham, who first reported the attack, Ballal was released on Tuesday. Witnesses said he was being given medical treatment in an ambulance when he was detained.
The attack on Hamdan very quickly garnered a lot of attention from activists on the ground, journalists, and also international movie stars.
The National's Thomas Helm reports from Jerusalem.
One of the activists I spoke to was an American from a anti-occupation Jewish group in the States. She was assaulted in the attack and clearly shaken up by what had happened. She was shoved, saw her colleagues punched. She was also hit with a long stick, and a car that she was in along with others to escape was attacked with stones and the windows smashed.
Adra and Ballal both live in the Masafir area where the attack took place. Their documentary, which made history with its Oscar win earlier this month, portrays the struggle by its Palestinian residents against settler violence and the demolition of villages in the area by the Israeli military.
The attack's significant because it's exactly what the film is about. The film documents the plight of those on Masafir Yatta, an area that was declared a military training zone in the 1980s. Since then, the residents, many of whom have refused to leave, are subject to very frequent Israeli military raids in which property is demolished, homes are demolished. The attacks on communities like Syria are very common, and Bassel Adra actually told me that since No Other Land won the documentary, there have been daily attacks on the community. So it's a sign of how severe their plight is that even with all this global attention, perhaps actually because of this global attention, settlers feel the need to attack so violently and so often.
A top Iranian military commander, Esmail Qaani, visited Iraq last week to help maintain the unofficial truce between militant groups and the U.S. after the collapse of Gaza's ceasefire. That's according to sources speaking to The National on Tuesday. Qaani is the leader of the Quds Force, one of 5 branches of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. His visit came as Tehran and Washington lay the groundwork for potential negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. Iran's regional role and its support for non-state armed groups have heavily weakened following the war with Israel. Meanwhile, the U.S. is waging a military campaign against the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, who have resumed attacks in the Red Sea in support of their ally Hamas in Gaza. In recent months, they've garnered recognition as Iran's strongest proxy force. Earlier this week, members of the U.S. National Security Council inadvertently leaked some of the plans on that military campaign, discussed in a group chat on the messaging app Signal, to the editor-in-chief of the American magazine The Atlantic.
The timing is very important because it comes after Mr. Trump has sent a letter to the Iranians proposing some kind of a window for negotiating a comprehensive deal that involves the nuclear program and Iran's actions in the region.
The National's foreign editor Mohamad Harisi reports.
Iran has said that the letter had threats in it, but it also said that it offered opportunities and that it is looking into it. He visited Baghdad many times, but every time he goes there and he speaks to Iran-backed militias, it's about something really important. And this is why this is a landmark visit, because it comes in the middle of negotiating an agreement to negotiate. So he doesn't, and Iran doesn't want any actions to overshadow any potential talks or discussions between the two big powers.
Iran-backed militias in Iraq stopped their attacks on U.S. facilities in the country after an unannounced truce that involved Tehran and the Iraqi government last year. When the war in Gaza continued, attacks resumed for a short time before the truce was restored. Iran-backed militias have long taken up positions on Iraqi soil.
It showcases how influential is Iran over these groups. But I think the government of Iraq has managed to put some kind of limits on this influence. We've seen in recent hours how the US is planning to intensify its attacks, and it has been showcased in the worst way by including a journalist to a private group on Signal. What comes next is really important. We have to keep our eyes out on Yemen and also on Iraq.
Israeli shelling in southern Syria has killed at least 4 civilians. That's according to statements from authorities on Tuesday. Those strikes came a day after Israeli shelling killed 1 person in southern Lebanon, and despite warnings from EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas that continuing attacks risk further regional escalation. In a statement on Telegram, provincial authorities reported that people were killed as residents fled Israeli tank shelling in the town of Kouaya.
These attacks on Tuesday came despite Ms. Kallas, who was visiting Jerusalem on Monday.
Here's the National's Jamie Prentis with more.
She said that the attacks on Syria, for example, were unnecessary because Syria at the moment is not attacking Israel and risks feeding further radicalization against Israel. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a war monitor with extensive sources across the country, said that an Israeli military unit had entered the town and fired heavy artillery at residents attempting to resist the incursion. For its part, the Israeli army said it had struck Syria in response to incoming fire that it had exchanged with armed people in the south.
Israel has launched hundreds of strikes on military sites in Syria since rebels overthrew Bashar al-Assad in December. It says it wants to prevent weapons from the previous regime falling into the hands of the new authorities, which it views as jihadists.
Earlier in the day, it had also bombed 2 air bases in Homs province as part of a wider campaign across Syria in the wake of the fall of the Assad regime in December.
The Israeli military has also expanded into the UN-patrolled buffer zone in the occupied Golan Heights, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has demanded the demilitarization of southern Syria. That's all for this morning's headlines. You can get these stories and follow live updates at our site. Yasmin Al-Taji, The National.